This week I thought I'd talk about the truth of CVs and why you're struggling to get yours read and what you can do about it. So what is a CV? It's a document that tells people who you are, what you've been doing, and kind of where you're going. Not always, because no one really approaches that on their CV, or not many people do, which we'll talk about in a second. But your CV is virtually that, just a document of your past, what you've been up to. Now, you can ascertain a lot of information from people's pasts, but a lot of people make a lot of assumptions on people's CVs at the same time. The worst thing about a CV is, if it's not written properly, more assumptions made, and the less likely that particular person at the end of that CV will be contacted to come and be interviewed, which is an absolute shame. But that person, or whoever you are, that has badly written your CV, it's not your fault, because you were probably never shown how to write a good CV and what information you should be adding onto your CV. This is the problem with CVs. I've never seen the same CV twice. I've seen every single person that sent me their CVs individual. It is extraordinary how many different versions of this one document we can create. Now, the world would be boring if we all had the same kind of bland grey CV. But that said, sometimes the world is a lot more easier when a CV is presented in a format and with the relevant information that will be advantageous to yourself. Now, there's a load of different types of CVs out there. And all the types of CVs that I've seen, there are a couple that really do work. And it's just really information that you've put on there is mostly the things that work. So your CV could be blue or green or whatever color you want to make it, as long as it's relevant, it has all the relevant information for that job that you're applying for, then you still get called up. So what have you got to do? There's a lot of books out there. Some of them are saying that you've got to make your CV 7 seconds, some 10 seconds, some 5 seconds. What do they mean by that? Well, that's the read time of your CV. That's how long it takes the hiring manager to read your CV to ascertain if you are relevant for that role. Now, bear that in mind, okay? If your CV cannot tell the hiring manager within a period of time of reading it that you are relevant for the role, then you're going to be rejected. Now, that people don't like the idea of, but that is the fact. That's exactly what happens. So what can you do to kind of change that? I mean, a lot of CVs tend to have the name on the top, contact information. You won't believe how many don't have a contact information on there. A brief synopsis of who you are, an introduction, or what I like to call the elevator pitch, which I'll come to in a second, and then something else here, and then the job. This something else here, for some reason, is starting to happen a lot more these days. It's normally a list of achievements or skills, soft skills normally. Sometimes people put their education here. Just something happens here which expands that first page away from the relevant key skills and abilities that particular person has. Because at the end of the day, most people applying for a similar job in a similar vein with someone else for hopefully more money or more responsibility or better way of life. So what you need to do is basically look at that part of the CV first. Understand why that part of the CV is really important. Remove that bit from the CV and bring up the job with relevant experience and key achievements within that job. If you're in a performance-based job, that's probably a good time to put your sales figures in there as well. But also that introduction bit, which I said I'll come to, the elevator pitch. This bit is important as well. People do read it. I know some people that don't read it and just jump straight to this. Now, some recruiters do that. But this elevator pitch bit here, this really important part at the top, is where I always aim people towards the job specification and where you are relevant for that job. Write it in there and explain that part of why you're applying for that particular role by stating that you are a 10 years experienced sales engineer selling precision engineering equipment to blah, 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 blah. That's the type of stuff I'm on about, because that's what the job specification was requesting and asking for. Moving into the job part of it, and that's where you start making, your CV relevant. There's one thing I always tell people as well. Job titles are really subjective. If you're a business development manager in one particular company, then you're a sales engineer in another company. Or you're a design engineer in one company and you're a projects design engineer in another company. Wherever that is, those are subjective job titles. I always say to people, match the job title of the job you are applying for, as long as it's within those tolerances and as long as the role reflects pretty much what that job is applying for. If you're going for other jobs, now that requires a different type of CV, which I'll probably do a video on another time, but I have done a video on stretch applications and what you need to do. So look out for that. I'll try to put the link in the comment section. But moving into kind of where the rest of your CV goes and what you need to put in there. Now I've seen CVs pretty much stop at page 2 because the unwritten rule is they shouldn't be longer than 2 pages. But I always say they need to be as long as they need to be. Yes, there are certain moments, if you've got 20 years career, you could probably whack down your CV to probably the last 10 years and then list the jobs, job titles and kind of employment dates of those jobs. So that kind of bottom part of that CV needs to have education, needs to have, you can put hobbies and interests in there if they're relevant. So this last bit of your CV is you and your future, the trajectory of your career. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What are your hopes, your aspirations? What do you want your career to become? Because these are really good bits of information for a future employer and a recruiter. Because if you put information on in this kind of part, normally in the introduction part, and that can give the reader a real good taste of who you are, and maybe that reader has that thing right there and then in order to attract you across to that particular company. And why do I say this? Because it's rarely done. The types of people that do it are contractors. The types of people that do it that I've read are people with aspirations that want to get to the next level. And what companies are looking for is aspirational people that want to move forward with their career. So in conclusion to your CV and what you need to really do with it, you need to spend some time with it. You need to be able to tailor it for every job. And I say that in nearly every single video I make about CVs. You need to tailor it for every job you apply for. It's got to be relevant for that particular role. It's got to show effort. It's got to show that you understand the job specification that you're applying for by reflecting it in your ability and experiences. Now, don't lie. I always say this as well. Do not lie. Just pull out of yourself where you have done this and show examples if you have to. Because you know, if you've got examples, if you've got drawings, or if you've got sales figures, or you've worked with certain companies in certain sectors, put them on your CV. Show people those examples, or put a link to a Dropbox or something where you can show examples of your work or videos of your work. Make your CV look interactive and draw people into it to want to know more about you. But that CV, that's your ticket. That's how you get in to the next level. That is the interview. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to make sure that that thing presents you when you can't tell it otherwise. It is out of your hands once it's left your inbox.